After a 3-week training arc, I was ready for some action. It had been ages since Season 2 started, and I still had not won a single duel. This had to be remedied. So I began looking for an opportunity to fight someone. But life continued to happen, and I never really got around to it. From making an extra gear set to doing other stuff, I kept myself busy. And so I never did get any dueling experience or any combat of really any sort other than fighting with mobs, which doesn't count. However, eventually things did finally happen. I had been in a row of sorts with the Sweeney because a while ago I had gotten my main account on Soulforge, which my main account is on my computer. However, I'm never at my computer, so I always use my alt, which is basically my main at this point. But anyways, I gave that my other account, my what's supposed to be my main account, some gear, and then proceeded to die with that gear. And I've never logged on with the main account ever since. And I was just there, and I logged on, and I was very quickly, let's just say there were some players that spawned, and I elytred off, and I did not come back, which was breaking rules, but I really did not care if I just got like 40 points, which is exactly what I got. And so DeSweeney had been saying over and over again that he wanted a gear set. I really did not see why he kept saying that, as I thought it was pretty clear I was simply taking 40 points and I was never going to give him a gear set. Eventually, I did try to get him to do a duel with me. I actually even planned to just give him a gear set, and then if he could win the battle, I would also give him the gear set I had that I was using in the battle, which would have given him 2 gear sets instead of 1, and would have given me a duel practice, but I never ended up doing that, and just tried to get him to fight me. The result was he instead decided to use his mod powers to give me another 20 points, or maybe even 40 if I remember right, bringing my total up to either 50 or 80. Naturally, I was ticked off and very mad. Now, there are some rules and such that in real life and other such stuff that actually do work like this, but I thought this was frankly absurd. I thought it was completely ridiculous that I could get punished twice for this. In the end, all of that ended up ending because Lava decided to come in, intervene, teleported me to spawn, and he basically gave me a freaking anxiety attack because I don't know, something's freaking wrong with me, and I just panic a lot of times whenever something that I feel like is high stakes comes to pass. As a result, I completely panicked. I was caught completely off guard by the TP command. I was actually planning to go ahead and just fight DeSweeney. I was going to completely ignore what he said and just attack him regardless. And I actually was geared up for a fight. Lava ended up teleporting me and scared the frick out of me. So I ended up falling for a basic trap that I already had previous knowledge of just because of how much of in shock I was. On top of that, to add even more shame, I had a Totem of Undying in my inventory and a bunch of Ender Pearls in my hotbar, neither of which I used, and both of which would have saved me, but instead I died to a basic trap that I already knew about and got completely humiliated in front of the server again. Once again, I had been humiliated, and I was absolutely furious. I was furious at myself and furious at DeSweeney, but much more at myself for falling for such a pathetic trap, one that I had built many times, well, actually just 2 times, and one that I already knew about. It was freaking ridiculous. I knew that I had to get into more PvP situations or more high-stress situations on this SMP. I was completely unused to it, clearly by my reaction every time something got important, as I would kind of, lose control and, freeze up, which naturally led to me losing a handful of fights. Although this didn't happen all the time, it had a hand in me losing a lot of times, as it definitely impaired my performance. Sometimes it would impair my performance, and other times, like this one, it completely destroyed my performance. Instead of me jumping to Sweeney and fighting him, I fell for a very, very basic trap. And for, I don't know, I can't even, really even continue yapping about it. It's just ridiculous. This event very, very much beat up my wishes to have revenge on Sweeney for all the times he had embarrassed me and made me feel small and such. This, as a result, made me very, very bloodlusted and hungry for revenge. But instead, I decided to gather another set of gear, which took me a significant amount of time. As a result, because it took me so much time, the bloodlust and hunger for revenge wore off, and I cooled off. And things cooled down, and all the points were removed by lava. I hadn't actually known that I was allowed to escape, but my original plan was to completely ignore whether it was allowed or not, and just do it, because I was freaking sick of it. I very much had full intentions of killing the Sweeney then and there, regardless of whether it was allowed or not. I did not care. But that's not what happened. I froze up, I got surprised, caught me off guard, and I realized I needed to be surprised more often. I needed to do stuff like that more. And while the bloodlust and need for revenge went away, the realization that I needed more experience did not go away. If anything, it was much, much stronger. And I realized that I had zero actually good. I was getting no experience, especially for how long I had been on this SMP. So I wanted to have more experience. But unfortunately, as I said before, life happened, and I got caught up in distractions, getting the gear set together, and other sorts of things. And as it happened, eventually, it was decided that Season 2 of Soulforge was going to come to an end. The date was set for August 9th, which I thought was a perfect day. And my teammate, Pizza Fries, made a plan. For once, the plan was not made by me, but rather by Pizza Fries, the guy who had pretty much been carrying our team, at least in terms of economy and such, since the first day he joined. This guy created a plan for a bomber. The plan was basically that we would take this bomber using TNT dupe machines and rain death over our opponents. While it is unlikely that these would actually kill anyone, maybe a handful of people, if we were lucky, it would certainly give us a height advantage and allow us to be present in the fight while hopefully not taking any casualties, allowing us to thin out our opponents and change the terrain, and giving us a very defendable position. As you can tell, I liked this plan. Also, I do have a note. TNT dupe machines technically are illegal. However, Pizza Fries got specific permission from Aspect to do that. Just had to say that there. Because technically they shouldn't be allowed, but since the season was ending, and it was kind of a bad season, it appears that Aspect didn't really care, and so he gave Pizza permission to do it. So yeah, I just had to clear that up. Anyways, however, plans change. And the date for the finale changed. And whereas the 9th had no problems for me, I thought it was a perfect day, and it was a perfect day for me to participate, and hopefully prove my worth to everyone that I had changed and become stronger. It, however, changed to the 3rd. Actually, it changed to the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Essentially, it kind of was in between those 3 days. Originally, I believe it was the 2nd, then was going to go to the 4th, and then eventually it was settled on to be the 3rd. However, it didn't matter which one of these days it landed on. All of them were compromised for me. I could not come to any of these, and the reason why was because I would be up in Michigan during these times. And that was an extreme problem, because I was going to be in a vehicle almost the whole time, and I almost certainly was going to be busy during the times that the event would be held. The result was, I was very worried about the day it would be set on. And eventually it was set on Sunday at 2 p.m. My fate was sealed. And as the day approached, I thought maybe I would have a chance to actually play. But as the time went on, it became clear I would not be participating, despite me trying multiple times to join, to even maybe lift a tiny bit of resistance, or even just go and die because of having terrible connection. I was unable to even reach the battlefield, or even leave for the battlefield, but because I had such bad internet, I just kept being unable to join. As a result, I was completely unable to participate, and I never even joined. Well, actually, I did join the server earlier, before the battle, but never even joined after the battle had started, or any sort of thing later. And, however, there was a slight silver lining to this. While I was unable to participate in the battle that day, I was able to test my strength on another player the night before. Since I thought it was highly unlikely I would be able to participate in the final battle, I had decided that I was going to fight against some random nerd. The Sweeney was online the night before, and I had decently good internet at the hotel we were at. I decided that it would be a good idea to jump him. However, unfortunately, he logged off. But I was able to get coordinates from this guy named Ray. I deduced these coordinates were likely to Aiden's Island. I was correct. I explored Aiden's Island for a bit, and thought it was really cool. I could understand why eventually the server decided to have the battle instead of being at spawn. It was decided it would be at Aiden's Island. And yeah, it was pretty clear why. However, I had not come to look at the sites. I had come to jump this player named Ray Manzarek. But I heavily underestimated him. I thought that it didn't really matter however this battle would probably turn out. I was extremely confident. I had plenty of resources, and even if I did die, I had another gear set on hand. It did not mean anything if I died, really. And even if I were to begin losing, I probably wouldn't die. I was extremely confident in my abilities to escape anyone who wasn't an S tier. I think escaping comes quite naturally to me generally, but not always, and I think it could use a lot. My skills probably need a lot of refining till I'm actually as good as I thought I was previously. I still need a lot of skills. However, I figured that it would be very easy to get my opponent to waste a pearl and then use the cooldown advantage to get away. And I was confident that if I was anywhere other than underground, I was very confident I could escape. And since the duel was not going to be held underground, I thought that there was no way I was going to die to this, regardless of whether I won or lost. I, however, made several critical mistakes. The first critical mistake I made, which, while not the biggest, was extremely critical. I underestimated Ray by a lot. I assumed he was a low-tier player, when in fact he was an S-tier. In fact, he was competing with Colton for the second or third place. Technically, I believe at the moment he is in second place for the strongest player on Soulforge in terms of PvP. Yeah, that's a pretty big disparity between what I thought he was and what he really was. However, to talk about the second and third mistakes I made, we have to get into how the fight began. After splashing my pots down, I went to find him. I had a little bit of trouble, but eventually I managed to find him. Once I found him, we kind of froze. It only took him a second or two to realize I had all the effects prepared for PvP. Regardless, he did not prepare to fight me, allowing me to get in the first few hits, knocking him off of the island. I then followed him into the water below. Now, I don't believe I've spoken about this, but I despise water PvP. I am terrible at it, and I hate it. So I did not fight in there for very long before I decided to get out of there, post haste. From there, our fights began to continue on the seashore, or lake shore, the little area in between the lake and the sea. And I was not fighting the best. It seems that the way I fight, it's like there's a little switch in my brain, and for some reason that switch was turned off, and I was just doing pretty badly. It's improved thanks to the training arc, but I was like in non-tryhard mode, and try as I might, it takes a ridiculous amount of focus to get into tryhard mode. As a result, I was losing by a fair bit. I feel like if I was tryharding, I would have actually been winning the fight by a long shot in this first part. Neither of us were really performing well in the first part. I had not gotten adjusted to fighting yet, and he was still, I guess, recovering from getting jumped, and he was not trying at all. He was not using pots. He was not even, trying to eat. He was literally just letting me wear him down until I popped his totem. Now, here's the thing. Normally, if I popped a totem on this guy, it would be incredible, right? But it was not incredible in this fight because he let me do it. But also, here's the other thing. I didn't even know I had popped his totem. I just knew I was winning at this point in time. Also, I had managed to splash down a weakness pot on him, but unfortunately, I got caught in the crossfire of it, and so we were that advantage was nullified. Unlike slowness, which I nailed on him, giving him a debuff and giving me the speed advantage, which helps to even our skill differences. However, after his totem popped, he pearled away and quickly put down his pots and actually started fighting well. However, I had actually gotten adjusted and was actually starting to fight better, more at my full capacity without me tryharding. And so while, I don't know, it's like a mental freaking block thing. I guess it's something to do with just me. But I was more or less being held back to 60% of my potential. Maybe less of that, maybe more like 40. I would say 60%. And so I was losing. It felt like a fight between someone that was one tier above me. It wasn't super different. It wasn't so bad that I felt like he was dominating me. But it was bad enough that I was losing and I kind of knew it. Or I sort of knew it. The thing was, I was extremely overconfident. I had only brought a single notch apple to the fight, and I had already eaten it. But despite that, I had a lot of gaps, plenty of steak, and some golden carrots, plus an extra 2 sets of pots, I believe. So I was confident I could last a long time in a fight against him. And here is my second problem, and my second critical flaw that I made in this fight. I was way too overconfident about my escaping abilities. I am extremely confident in my escaping abilities. Before this fight, I was virtually certain that I could escape anyone in the SMP that wasn't an S tier. I'm not so confident about that anymore. I am still pretty confident I could escape anyone who is below A tier, probably halfway through A tier. But here's the thing. I'm confident. I was confident I could escape anyone who wasn't an S tier. This guy's an S tier, and a pretty high level S tier at that. Not a pretty high level one, actually. More like a top tier one. Actually, he is a top tier one. So, yeah, I very much overestimated my escaping abilities. And as a result, I was very overconfident in the fight. I was confident that not only that I could probably last a long time, possibly outlasting him, because at this point I could tell he was more skilled than me. I thought he was at least a tier above me, which at the time I figured I was in the high B tier to maybe low A tier. Despite what the tier list actually says, I had not been tier tested and I had not really given any good indication that I had grown stronger yet, which I was intending to do right then. So I believed he was about a tier above me. However, as the fight went on, I kind of felt like I was doing more like low B tier to maybe high C tier in terms of performance, maybe even lower considering how bad I was doing, especially in hindsight. It felt more like maybe a B tier, like a low B tier to a low A tier fight. But honestly, if I look back on it, it felt a lot more like a C tier versus B tier fight than a F tier versus a S tier fight. Like, you have what should have been a completely terrible matchup. Like, I should have gotten obliterated by this guy in seconds. Instead, I actually held my own against him, which is, in its own thing, quite a feat. But anyways, back to the actual duel. I could tell I was outscaled. I knew I was losing, but in a way, I knew I was outscaled. I was taking more hits than he was. But I was confident that I could outlast him. And if I couldn't outlast him, I was confident I could escape him. However, while the duel continued, I wasn't really taking it. I was still not taking the duel seriously. I was extremely overconfident, and I was really toying with him the entire time. I thought his performance was actually hilarious, and I was very much enjoying the fight. However, this is where my third critical mistake comes in. My third and critical final flaw was overestimating durability. The reason why I overestimated this durability so badly was because I was basing it off of probably one of the worst fights to base durability off of ever. I based it off of me versus Cosmo. This was a very, very different duel. For one thing, there are several things that are different. For one thing, that was on a realm, this is on a world, which isn't too big of a difference. But the real difference comes in that two differences. One, XP bottles are way more effective on the SMP, apparently. And two, both me and Cosmo in that duel were performing horribly. I was performing horribly because it was the first week of my training arc. Cosmo was performing horribly because he was on a controller. As a result, we were hitting each other around once every clash, maybe twice if one of us got lucky. We were going more or less neck and neck throughout the fight. Although I was, as it seems to be a trend with me, I was also holding back. Well, not too much holding back, but I was toying with him, not taking the duel seriously once again. However, the duel lasted around 10 minutes before even my helmet broke, and I lasted around a minute before my boots broke. I was also able to survive, with moderate difficulty, I was able to survive manageably with a missing helmet. This, however, was a much, much, much less intense duel than me versus Ray. Because whereas me and Cosmo were hitting around once or twice per clash, me and Ray were going anywhere from 3 to 5 hits per clash to 5 to maybe even 7, something like that. Actually, I doubt that, but we were clashing with a lot more hits than me versus Cosmo, and as a result, my durability was getting tanked way quicker. I had no idea, and I was pretty confident I could last around half a day before even needing to use XP bottles. I only used 6 simply to keep up appearances and use psychological warfare, while also using Soulforge to kind of taunt Ray into fighting me harder. This was my undoing, as I completely overestimated my durability, and as I was running, my helmet broke. At first, I kind of panicked, but then I realized that I was probably capable of surviving without a helmet. Once again, however, the result was different. I had been used to fighting Cosmo, or I was basing this off of my fight with Cosmo, which, as I said, was a lot lower amount of hits than our duel between me and Ray. I was fighting someone who was hitting me a lot more, and as a result, I was taking way more damage. While I probably could have survived without a helmet for a little while, despite the higher damage concentration, I unfortunately lagged out. And I also panicked a bit. I had completely underestimated my opponent, and I had completely overestimated my gear's durability. And I had overestimated my escaping abilities as well. All these combined led to me dying, plus a very unlucky lag moment for me, led to my totem popping and me getting killed, and me losing the 1v1. Now, once again, I had been defeated, continuing the trend of me never winning a single fight on Soulforge, which is freaking insane. Granted, most of my fights have been of a varying quality, from me fighting Glaxer being neck and neck and losing because I was stupid and didn't take it a obvious advantage, to me losing to me having a stalemate with Star because Star was garbage and I was lagging out like crazy, to me losing a 1v6 because I was fighting some of the best players and I also was, completely unprepared for a 1v6, to me losing, let's see, what was the next fight I freaking lost? Oh yes, to me getting stabbed by Zav's team, by Gungang, like twice. To me getting, let's see, what was the next death? I'm just like listing off other deaths. To me getting killed by a very obvious trap by Sweeney. To me getting killed by Darks. To me getting, you get the point. I have died so many times on here without a single win. To me getting literally, for instance, I literally got jumped by freaking Vexer and Red Pair. Red Pair, who I have already proven to be far superior to in 1v1 combat. Granted, I lost definitely because I was unprepared and because I lost more because of lag than because of skill issue. That one was more skill issue than lag, but regardless, that's not the point here. The point is I still had not achieved my goal of winning a single fight. And as a result, it seemed to be too late. The only opportunity I had left was the next day. However, while this was a loss, technically, I would like to state, as I did before, when I lost the Cosmo duel, that while this is technically a loss, it's a very big step forward in progress. For one thing, it either proves one of two things. The first thing would be, and this is the pessimistic thing, we're going to take the pessimistic way here. The first thing it could prove is that Ray is completely unfit as an S tier. Considering that if we were saying in this case that I am still performing as an F tier, it technically would mean that Ray should not be an A tier. In fact, it would put him on probably even worse than a C tier. Probably top of F tier or bottom of C tier. As a result, this would be a pretty terrible outcome and would mean that I still suck. The optimistic view is that I am A tier, or at least I performed as an A tier in this fight. Now, I find this to be slightly unlikely, and it's probably more likely that Ray is probably more like an A tier, and I am more like a B tier person here in this situation. But maybe I'm just being under-optimistic, and maybe I really am on the level of A tier finally, which is what I actually would be shooting for next season. I want to be on an A tier level, not the top of A tier, but in A tier anyways. That's my goal. I just want to be better than the majority for a while. And that's enough for me for now. But this optimistic view puts me in A tier, and you might say that he was holding back, and he definitely was. Neither of us. It was clear to me, and I'm sure to everyone else, that Ray was not trying very hard. But I would like to put that into perspective and say I was not trying very hard. I was not taking the duel seriously in in the slightest. I was completely confident I would win. And I was confident that even if I lost, it would be a small margin and I would survive. So I was holding back, I was toying with him, trying to get him to try harder. So neither of us were actually going at our full strength, and it was still like a 1-tier disparity. So I would point out that if we were both trying hard, perhaps we would have actually come up to the level of tiers that I'm talking about. Perhaps I would have actually fought like an A tier, and perhaps he would have fought like an S tier. However, that never happened. As I stated before, I made several key mistakes that resulted in the duel ending far earlier than it perhaps could have, and I actually would like to think about how perhaps that might have ended. Perhaps it would have been a truly epic battle if it actually had lasted longer, as it was slowly starting to trend towards a higher level of strength being used on both parts. It is likely that if I had not made the critical flaw of the gear stuff of my durability, then it is likely that I would have had enough time for that mental switch to finally flick on and for me to actually start tryharding. In which case, it would have likely evened out our fight at that point. I probably would have actually started winning. And it is likely that he would have been enticed to go all out. At that point, it would be likely that both of us would be fighting at an incredibly intense rate, and it probably would have been one of the most epic fights on the SMP. Not the most epic, but probably one of the most epic 1v1s. And at any rate, it would have been an absolute thrill for me if it had gone this far. Granted, it is undoubtedly true that I would have lost this duel if it had gone this far, but I would not give a frick, okay? If I get into that epic of a duel with someone, I am going to love every second of it, even the seconds that I lose it. Like, man, I would have been so happy if that was what happened. And I'm still happy with my performance so far. Technically, there are hypotheticals. If you're a hater, you could technically still say I suck. And granted, I think that's probably true. There are several other points on top of these 3 critical flaws that I made that I could talk about, and I think I actually will go over them. One of these most critical flaws that I saw, other than the top 3 which led to my defeat, were my complete lack of skills at getting out of cobwebs and my complete lack of placing cobwebs, or my complete lack of skill at placing cobwebs. I cannot place cobwebs for the life of me. The only reason why they worked at all, even the slightest, in the Cosmo duel was because he was playing on controller. And it's kind of self-explanatory how bad I am at getting out of cobwebs in my own area. I kind of suck at the water method. I don't like keeping an extra slot for water buckets. For water buckets in my inventory, it takes up space, and I really don't like it, so I generally use pearls. Generally, as a result, I'll bring a lot of pearls to a fight so that I have way more than enough to escape cobwebs constantly. But the thing about that is, you can only pearl so often, and so as a result, I might get trapped in cobwebs more often, and it makes cobwebs, or someone who's good at placing cobwebs, an extreme threat. And while I'm not completely helpless while being in a cobweb, as I've slightly adapted to being able to actually fight someone despite being in a cobweb, as generally the tactic of someone attacking from outside of a cobweb is to jump and move around, strafing essentially. However, the fact that I'm stuck in a cobweb removes the need for me to move at all and allows me to completely control my aim, which in some cases allows me to actually outfight the person attacking me. In any case, I do need to work on both of these, and it is likely that I'll need to actually start using water buckets in PvP. And while that's kind of sad for me to actually have to relent to that, it is probably a necessary thing for me to learn. In conclusion of this duel, I am highly impressed with my performance, but very disappointed that it did not go further. And also to talk about the me and Ray situation, there were no hard feelings over it. I was intending to leave if his totem popped again. I didn't know it popped the first time, so I just thought it hadn't popped yet, so I was planning to leave if his totem popped, because I didn't want to kill him. I just wanted to prove that I had skill, and I just wanted to have some fun. But anyways, since I thought it was very unlikely, I found an extra gear set at like spawn. Some idiot left it in the nether, and I took it. And so I decided, there would be no harm in just giving him my extra gear set, since it had been stated in the rules now that I was not allowed to come back and re-gear for the final fight. So I just gave Monkey, well, that's his name on Soulforge. I guess I should call him by his Minecraft name because that sounds cooler. So I gave Ray my extra set of gear, and there appeared to have been no hard feelings. It was just a duel for fun, and I think we both enjoyed it. I especially enjoyed the thrill of it. And now we come to the closing part of the video. Tragically, I was unable to play in the finale. I believe I stated that previously, but I was unable to play. I was able to get on for like 7 minutes previous and yap, but I really wasn't able to join at all during the actual course of the battle. As a result, I have decided I will give a analysis of the fight from whoever would be willing to give me their footage. That analysis will be coming up shortly, but firstly, I must state that the bomber plan that Flag, well, as his Pizza had, failed, as no one helped him. I was unaware that he needed help. I assumed he would do it on his own, and I assumed he had everything ready on his own. And, but he did not. And in hindsight, this is partially my fault. I did not trust my teammates at all towards the later parts of the season, and it did not help they kept joking about fighting. They kept splashing down random potions because they had so many, and they were just wasting them for fun. But yeah, it triggered I was very nervous, and while I was even more I was very confident. I guess I wasn't quite so confident as I was in that one fight that I lost to Ray, but I was very confident that I could take a 2v1 of Pizza and Dylan and probably come out on top, or at least escape. I didn't think I would probably win in a cave, but I was confident I could escape. And I was confident that if it was on the surface, I'm actually pretty sure I could win if it was on the surface. But I did not want to take a 2v1, and I was very nervous. So I was very much ready on the trigger to use slowness pots and run for my life. Well, yeah, I mean, kind of run for my life, but to be honest, my life probably wouldn't be on the line for a run like that. But my lack of trust meant I did not participate and help my teammates, at all towards the end. Which is unfortunate, as that resulted in Flag. I keep calling him Flag because that's his Discord name. That resulted in Pizza's plan eventually getting botched, thrown out the window. So, that never happened. So, unfortunately, the rest of the team was forced to participate normally. Actually, there are a handful more announcements to make before the final duel. Firstly, a couple days before the finale, I found a dupe stash, one of Zav's. The reason why I know it was Zav's is because I found spawn eggs in it, and Zav was an admin, which means it is only he who could be the culprit. Well, actually, technically, Lava and Aspect could have been, but they are both so adamantly against duping that it's pretty clear it was Zav, who already got banned and only just got unbanned for the finale. Just in time for the finale of Soulforge Season 2. But anyways, I found his dupe stash. And how I found it was a pretty funny story. Okay, so I was just going to the stronghold here to get ender pearls. Hi. And I couldn't help but notice that my secret room, which I had built a while ago, and had hid extra stuff in for the end fight, which got raided by this one guy who I let live, and then he killed me, so I didn't get to participate in the end fight. But I wanted to check it out, and I couldn't help but notice that it had been blocked back in. So I went in, and
Pete Soffrey says he's signed a contract saying he won't kill you, Sam.
Well, I found this. I think this is some sort of duping thing, but I'm not sure. But then you got this. Bob the Helmet. Okay, and this is what one of these shulker boxes looks like. Something tells me there's been some duping. Probably.
Pete Soffrey says unless you hit him
I'm not 100% sure of this, but it is very suspicious that they all have the same armor trim and all of that. Then you have, Bob the Boot. I'm sure they're all the same here. I don't know why I grabbed one. I don't want to use these. So, yeah, but look, see, Bob the Boots, all this stuff. Oh. Okay. Someone has been admin. Okay, so, whoa, what? What the heck is going on? Okay, so now they're just... Okay, so this is just...
Sammy J. Netheralt says
There are spawn eggs.
Cypex1X Live says what? Sammy J. Netheralt says there are spawn eggs. Cypex1X Live says I am OMW I won't kill. Sammy J. Cypex1X Live says must be
Yeah,
X80.
sounds about right. Interesting. Yeah. Why is there only one diamond element in here? Okay, I was gonna be like, yay, maybe like gave this like unbreakable one. But what am I doing? I can't take any of this. I mean, maybe I might take the shulker box. I might take the shulker boxes. Interestingly, it doesn't appear that all of it is duped. But I mean, let's be honest, a lot of it is. Yes, most of it's duped. I don't think he duped everything though. But yeah, that's sus. That's really sus. Yeah, someone's up here. Yeah, so, yeah, this is definitely a dupe stash. Interesting. These all appear to be empty. Oh. Okay. I stand corrected. Yeah, if I had this kind of gear, I'd be able to outfit a whole freaking army. This is overkill. This is so overkill. Oh my word. Yeesh, this is like, has enough gear to outfit a whole team to the point that they could just die and come back endlessly without, like, ever having to get out of their gear ever again. Crazy. What happens if I activate the machine? I'm gonna activate the machine real quick here. So I don't know what it does. Oh, is it just a cobblestone generator? What? Oh, it's just a cobblestone generator. Wait. One second, I gotta test something here. Okay, so it's just a cobblestone generator. And a pretty bad one at that, if I'm gonna be honest. Why would you make one like this? Why? You could... Why the piston? What the heck? There's no reason for this. You just make it look suspicious. What the frick? Yeah, I better burn this. We're not supposed to dupe here, so I better burn this all. I don't have any Oh crap! I don't got any. Here, I'm gonna break these. Actually, Why is he wanting me to meet its surface? I'm a little bit busy right now.
Says Sam.
This new guy on our team called Cypex, who really recently joined our team, like right towards the end of the season. Okay, so he's already. I made him an offer. Well, actually, he made me an offer. I don't like this. He would give me 4 notch apples in exchange for me giving him a full shulker box of ender pearls. I'm kind of used to grinding, so I began work on it. I decided the best place to find ender pearls would obviously be the end dimension. So I went to the nearest end portal, and well, I couldn't. You see, to explain it without you having seen my previous video on the end fight, I had made a secret room right next to the end portal in the stronghold nearest to our base. And I had stored an extra gear set in there. Essentially, that was for in case if I died in the end fight. Now, if you saw the video, you'll know that never got used. I got betrayed by someone who I let live, who was under the delusion that the gear I had was his, when in fact someone else had stolen the gear that he thought I had stolen. I let him live when he was weak, and he came back strong, and ended up killing me, pretty much, basically murdering me, while I was de-gearing myself and under extreme levels of lag. And he also robbed my gear set there, completely ruining my chances of even participating in the end fight, and humiliating me again. I forget who that guy's name even is, but he's become of such little consequence to me and to the rest of the server, it seems, that I haven't even heard of him since. And while I would still like to get my revenge on him, it does not really matter to me that much anymore. However, I couldn't help but notice, right before I went to the stronghold, that my room no longer existed. The wall was patched up. I thought, oh, someone just patched it up for aesthetic reasons, even though that doesn't really make sense considering that the rest of the stronghold was in a complete mess. But whatever, I decided to mine 1 block into the wall, and lo and behold, I found a dupe stash. So I burned the stuff. The only things that were taken were the shulker boxes, which there were a lot of them. And Pizza Fries decided to take a lot of shulker boxes, empty shulker boxes though. Me and him both emptied them out together. And so all the duped items from Zav's secret stash were destroyed. So that was settled. That's pretty much all the extra stuff that I had to talk about. Now, let's get into the finale. After the finale started, things got very chaotic very quick. Fighting was all over the place.
They're restocking. I'm watching them restock out of a shulker.
People were
That's
even
my
restocking,
Yo.
which was not allowed. I believe Ziquo ended up chasing King Colton or a Spectrum.
Help. Right. Your back,
The fight went pretty deep into the forest.
Yo, he's trying to get Yo, Aspect's trying to get something to Z. Watch your back, Ray. I knocked him down. I knocked Aspect
They
down.
caught one of the players or they nearly caught one of the players.
I will.
However, this player dug under a tree. And under this tree there was a planted explosive.
Oh my gosh!
Which blew up and killed Zico and a couple other people. Or actually, I think only like one other person. Which was quite interesting. Lava fought valiantly, but eventually he also fell.
Oh no. I popped. I popped. Oh, I'm dead.
As the battle neared its end, King Colton and Tanoka got trapped in a cave with each other. While this clip doesn't show it, I believe the eventual result was Tanoka's death, but I don't quite remember anymore. Finally, after the battle had ended, only 6 players remained that had survived the battle. King Colton and a few others. But King Colton's like the only one I remember. People recommended that they reran the fight. However, eventually they decided against it. In the end, an accidental /kill command ended up killing the remaining 6 players. And thus, because I didn't come, I remained as the only surviving Soulforge member, and thus I survived Season 2, winning the final battle by not participating at all. Thank you for watching. And also, I'm just kidding. Congrats to King Colton. I think he definitely was the real winner here. And that's all. Thanks for watching, and I'm out.